Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire. And today we are looking at a Canadian requested case, that of Lindsay Buziak, a real estate agent who was supposedly murdered during a property showing in a suburb of Victoria, British Columbia. Apparently, she was lured to meet a man and a woman posing as clients. So, yeah, I mean, this doesn't happen every day. Very unique situation here. And this case has a lot of twists and turns. It has been requested a number of times, so we're finally going to take a look at it. It is not a simple case, which is, I'm guessing, why it was requested for the mind shock treatment with logic and reason at the forefront. So many cases, of course, remain unsolved simply because there is not a logical approach, and of course, the egos of law enforcement involved can have many cases remain unsolved, and people just don't seem to care enough to do anything about the statist system where law enforcement has the monopoly not just on violence, but on attempting to solve cases, and apparently where there are conflicts of interest, there's really no recourse. In the US, there is internal affairs, but it seems to be highly underutilized. I mean, how often do you even hear about internal affairs investigations? Although apparently there is one going on uh, for the Idaho 4 case in Moscow, Idaho. Apparently, a lot of the entire department, most of the department apparently is being investigated by IA. So, yeah, it's not that, I don't know what's going on in Canada regarding IA. I mean, I've talked about this on many other podcasts. There obviously need to be some kind of independent organizations that have the authority to investigate properly, that are not affiliated with any government agencies. I mean, that's the only way a lot of these cases are going to get solved definitively. But anyway, if you want to help support the podcast, help keep up awareness in unsolved cases, cold cases, missing persons cases, wrongful convictions, and more, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. If you're still not getting notifications, just like, comment, and share these podcasts across social media platforms more, so the algorithm can get you dialed in so you can get those notifications. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. Or if you're listening to live, just put them in the live chat and I will try to get to all of them. So, we will go through the wiki first, as is customary, just to see the general overview. And we will go from there. Then we will do the deep dive and follow all these twists and turns in this highly problematic case for quite a few different reasons, which we will get into now. So, just straight from the wiki, Lindsay Elizabeth Buziak, November 2nd, 1983, killed February 2nd, 2008, was a Canadian real estate agent who was murdered February 2nd, 2008 during a property viewing in Saanich, a suburb of Victoria, British Columbia, after being lured to meet a man and a woman posing as prospective clients seeking $1 million home. The murder remains unsolved. Buziak was born November 2nd, 1983 to Jeff and Evelyn Buziak. She had one sister, Sarah. In 2008, 24-year-old Buziak was an ambitious Victoria real estate agent who had made a promising start to her career and was described by her family, friends, and colleagues as popular and caring. Her boyfriend, Jason Zylo, is a member of a prominent and wealthy family that owns a successful real estate business. In late January 2008, Buziak received a call from a woman who said she and her husband were urgently seeking a home with a budget of $1 million. The caller had a foreign accent and offered what was later determined to be a fake name. Unnerved by the nature of the call, Buziak asked the caller how she had obtained her personal cell phone number, as she was a relatively junior employee. The caller claimed that one of Buziak's previous clients had shared it with her. Interesting. Buziak told Xylo and her father about the call and revealed her concerns. Xylo encouraged Buziak to meet with the client because of the high commission that she would earn from the sale of the home. To reassure her, Xylo offered to wait outside the property in his car in case anything should go awry. Buziak found a suitable property and arranged an appointment with the client to view the home at 5:30 p.m. Saturday, February 2nd, 2008. Buziak and Xylo ate a late lunch. Xylo. That's a weird name. Xylo. Ate a late lunch at a restaurant, paying the bill at 4:24 p.m. Then they departed separately in their own vehicles. It is believed that Buziak returned home to change her clothes before the viewing. Xylo traveled to an automobile repair shop to pick up a colleague, although he was running late. CCTV footage from the auto shop showed him leaving with the colleague at 5:30 p.m. Xylo and Buziak had exchanged several text messages, and Buziak was aware that Xylo would be late. The street upon which the house is located, DeSousa Place, is a small cul-de-sac containing 4 houses. Number 1702 is at the outer end of the cul-de-sac on the intersection of DeSousa Place and a main thoroughfare, Torquay Drive. The side of the property and the fence of the back garden run parallel to Torquay Drive. Although the caller had told Buziak that she would come alone to the viewing, a man and a woman were there. At 5:30 p.m., 2 witnesses saw a 6-foot-tall white man with dark hair and a blonde woman between 35 and 45 years of age wearing a distinctively patterned dress walking up the cul-de-sac. The witnesses saw Buziak greet and shake hands with the couple in a manner that caused witnesses to feel that Buziak did not know the couple. Buziak and the couple then entered the house. Xylo and his colleague arrived at the cul-de-sac at about 5:40 p.m. As they were driving to the property, Xylo saw a figure through the glass of the front door. He parked outside the property for about 10 minutes and then drove to another street to wait, as he did not want to be, quote, a nosy, interfering boyfriend, end quote. How would that be noisy if he's simply parked across the street quietly, reading a book or something, like not, pacing straight in front, directly in front of the house? I mean, he could be there for a different house. There's 4 other houses. I mean, it's kind of weird. After waiting another 10 minutes, Xylo texted Buziak to confirm that the situation was normal, but Buziak never opened the message. After 20 minutes had passed since Xylo had arrived and seen the couple go back into the house, Zayalo went to the front door and found it locked when he tried to open it. Through the mottled glass on the front door, he saw Buziak's shoes in the entrance hall, but there was no sign of movement and no one answered his repeated knocks at the door. So he dialed 911. So here's a floor plan of this house. When Zylo was on the phone with the operator, his colleague found a gap in the fence in the back garden, entered the garden, and saw that the back patio door was wide open. He summoned Zylo, who told the operator that the two men were entering the house. Zylo then ended the phone call. Zylo's colleague passed through the main level of the house to unlock the front door in order to admit Zylo, who immediately ran upstairs and found Buziak lying in a pool of blood in the master bedroom. Zylo called 911 a second time and emergency services arrived soon after. Buziak was pronounced dead when the paramedics arrived. She had been stabbed multiple times. There were no defensive wounds, indicating that it was likely that she had first been stabbed from behind and had no indication of what was about to happen. None of Buziak's possessions had been stolen, and she had not been SA'd. Okay. So the first thing that jumps out at me here, if there were other witnesses nearby who hadn't spotted the couple, obviously all eyes would have been firmly on Zylo. Not that they shouldn't be, even now. It's just, in some of these cases where witnesses, there were just, no witnesses to whoever the deceased had met with. Here we have supposedly multiple witnesses who saw this couple. So witnesses, plural, describe the couple. Caucasian, well-dressed man. Medium build, 6 feet tall. Woman was between 35 and 40, short blonde hair, shorter blonde hair. Designer dress. Interesting. So again, that was just the first thing that jumped out at me. If witnesses hadn't seen this couple, then Zylo would definitely be number one on the list, although he's still number one on many people's lists. So let's go over the investigation here. Zylo and his colleague were taken into custody but were released without charge after their version of events was verified and the time-stamped surveillance footage from the auto shop proved they could not have committed the murder. And another thing, like, why would he go to the auto shop when he could have just went to the house? Was he intentionally staging that alibi? Just a thought again. I don't claim anything is true or untrue. This is Mindshock, where the motto is, of course, the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. We don't hallucinate that anything was ruled out or ruled in like all the other goofs out there and all these other true crime podcasts who hallucinate to know things about unsolved cases while not being there, unless they really were there and they know that happened. But if they weren't there, obviously, they don't know exactly what happened. According to the Saanich Police Department, Zylo has been interviewed several times over the years and has always cooperated with police. He has also passed a poly. Because of the crime scene yielded no DNA, fingerprints, or other physical evidence, It is believed that the murder was well organized and executed by people who had killed before. I mean, yeah, it's always kind of. I mean, it is a little bit unusual, like this. I don't know, like this look at this hit couple, a hit couple. I know it probably happens more often than people think, but it's usually either a hitman working alone, a hit woman working alone, or some kind of team, some kind of assault team. I mean, I don't know if there are even stats on hit couples that commit hits. The police believe that the killers were leaving through the front door when Xylo first arrived at the property and then fled through the back door, leaving the back patio door open and passing through the fence into their vehicle on Torquay Drive. This scenario is consistent with the witnesses' statements that the unknown couple were walking, not driving, up the cul-de-sac. So they were just going to walk out of there? Interesting. And the fact that the owners of all the vehicles in the cul-de-sac were confirmed. The cell phone used by the unknown woman to call Buziak was purchased in Vancouver. Several months before the murder and had never been used until the call was placed. It was activated under the name of Paulo Rodriguez, which authorities consider to be a fake name. It was registered to a legitimate business address in Vancouver, but it is believed that the business has no connection with the case and that its address was simply chosen at random, which would make sense because they'd have to be pretty dumb to use their official business address to purchase a phone they would use to set up a murder. The phone was deactivated soon after the murder and has not been used since. Cell phone tower pings show that the phone traveled on the ferry from Vancouver the day before the murder. Authorities believe that the phone was used for the sole purpose of the murder and was discarded afterward, which supports their theory that the murder had been carefully planned. Xylo's family were investigated because of their connections with the cul-de-sac. DeSousa Court is named after developer Joe DeSousa, a friend and business associate of Shirley Xylo, Jason's mother. Oh, oh man. That's a heck of a coincidence. That is a heck of a coincidence. That's tough. That's a tough one. That is such a tough one. To just write that off as mere coincidence. Oh, out of all the cul-de-sacs. Oh, that is tough. Wow. So it's literally named after friend and business associate of Jason Xylo's, her boyfriend's mother. Part of the cul-de-sac was still under construction at the time of the murder, and DeSousa was at the location an hour before the murder supervising the construction work. However, the police have stated that no one in the Xylo family is a suspect. I mean, that's a heck of a coincidence. I mean, wow. Is this one of the few cases where it truly is an innocent coincidence? Oh, that is so tough. Supposedly, she was the one that picked the house, though. Unless she was possibly steered. In September 2010, the American network NBC aired a Dateline episode titled Dream House Murder. Saanich detectives revealed that in December 2007, about 8 weeks prior to the murder, Buziak tried to contact the friend of her ex-boyfriend while on a visit to Calgary. On January 22nd, 2008, the largest drug bust in Alberta's history took place, and the friend was arrested, accused of being a major participant in the drug trafficking operation. Okay, hold on a second. Oh, man. January 22nd, 2008. So literally days, so a week before her murder, her friend is arrested in the largest drug trafficking operation, the largest drug bust in Alberta's history. This is Buziak's friend who she tried to contact 8 weeks before the murder and who was arrested about 1 week before the murder. Wow. So now we have this coincidence plus the coincidence of this taking place on her boyfriend's mother's business partner and friend's cul-de-sac, of which he was also present an hour before the murder. Wow. Wow, this is quite the coincidence stack. I mean, how often does this happen? Another thing I kind of noticed here, this also jumps out at me. In other cases, a lot of coincidence theorists poo-poo the idea of nobody hires anybody to execute hits. Well, clearly it happens. So in all these other unsolved cases where there's not a lot of leads, it's kind of a rumor that it was a hit because someone had an alibi. A lot of goofs just completely dismiss any possibility that humans would pay other humans to kill somebody. It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. But yeah, the coincidence theorists, the Dunning-Kruger crowd, they, just not very sharp. But that's why Mindshock exists. So that's quite the coincidence. So let's continue here. So it was speculated that Buziak's murder may have been ordered by a drug cartel because she was believed to be a police informant. The detectives investigated the possibility but quickly eliminated it as a motive because Buziak was not an informant and the personal nature of her murder did not fit a hired killer's method of operation. Unless the hired killers were specifically instructed to do that to cover it up, to fool the goofy police, which, if that's the case, clearly it worked. Crime scene investigator Yolanda McClary and veteran homicide detective Dwayne Stanton agree that Buziak's murder was not a contracted operation related to a drug cartel, as it was brutal but too amateurish. Unless, of course, that was the design to make it look that way, or if this was outsourced and possibly outsourced again. I mean, who knows how these criminal operations are run. It's kind of goofy to hallucinate that hits are never outsourced, possibly to B-League individuals, especially if they're considered a little risky and they don't want to get caught. And, the identity of the people hiring isn't known and it's all done very carefully. They might outsource to B-League or even C-League. So it's kind of weird how these investigators are hallucinating that's complete impossibility on an unsolved case. Now, what makes me kind of lean to maybe, or possibly they thought she was a CI, even if she wasn't, and that could obviously draw some ire from certain individuals. But if her boyfriend is this connected, so real estate and criminality often go together. I mean, real estate, I'm not saying that's the case here. I'm just saying historically, some of these rich developers are involved in various crime, organized, drug, or otherwise. So if her boyfriend's mother and her boyfriend's, even unbeknownst to her boyfriend, unbeknownst to Xylo, perhaps he didn't know what his mother and this other developer were into. I mean, who knows? But this is already a tangled web, and we're just getting started. I mean, I'm kind of getting a good idea of why this was requested now. Starting to get a really good idea. Especially at how quickly the police eliminated that. Because if the police are also compromised, which also happens when you start dealing in the billion-dollar criminal industries, certain police wouldn't be the first time the popo was paid to look the other way and pretend they eliminated the possibilities to ensure the crime is never solved and the true guilty parties are never exposed, because that would affect their wallet. So again, I know the coincidence theorists are probably having an aneurysm at that suggestion, because those goofs, they just can't process that criminals don't always act alone. I mean, this was a murder conspiracy one way or another because there's 2 or more people involved. So no matter how you slice it, I know, again, the coincidence theorists are probably having such aneurysms and conniptions But this is a conspiracy no matter how you slice it. Now, how big the conspiracy is the only thing we're discussing now. So, again, wouldn't be the first time if it was kind of big and involved corrupt law enforcement. The investigators believe that Buziak's murder was very personal and planned by someone close to her, perhaps by someone who had access to inside info from the real estate office where she worked. Speculation regarding another drug bust was also investigated as a link to Buziak's murder. One man's phone had been tapped because of his high level of involvement in the trafficking and sale of narcotics in British Columbia and Alberta. During the wiretaps, law enforcement uncovered info that led to the BC legislature raids in 2003. Buziak's and her boyfriend's phones had also been tapped because of his association with the group. Okay, all right. Well, now I can see why a lot of coincidence theorists might like this case, because now, not only that, apparently we have confirmation that her phone is literally tapped. So I'm guessing that's how they knew she tried to contact, or one of the ways, in addition to the phone records, because it's literally tapped. Her and her boyfriend's phones are tapped, and the coincidence theorists are going to write that off too. I mean, wow, this is turning into a coincidence theorist dream case. There are just so many things to write off as coincidence. However, this theory was quickly dismissed because Buziak had no known involvement with drug use or trafficking and was not included in the defense witnesses list during the trial. Well, why would she be expected to? I mean, obviously they don't always list everybody involved. I mean, these sound like some borderline mentally disabled investigators who are always quickly dismissing everything. Not with due diligence, but quickly dismissing. Well, clearly she had no known involvement. If they had known about it, well, they're claiming there's no known involvement. Even so, regardless of whether it was known or not, they wouldn't disclose that depending on, how high the corruption goes. But of course, this is the Wiki article. So of course, Wiki is these are coincidence theorist propagandized narratives. We always have to be skeptical and logically examine this propaganda because the case is unsolved for a reason. South to West with a comment here. The boyfriend strikes me as a Giga Chad type. Interesting. Later events. Later, in 2008, Nikki, a close friend of Buziak, claimed that she had been awakened by a telephone call in the middle of the night from an unknown number. She did not remember much of what the female caller had said, but she noticed that the caller had a strange accent and that she could not place. She became scared when she remembered that Buziak had reported that her unidentified client and possible murderer spoke with an odd accent that she believed may have been fake. After the phone call, Nikki called the originating phone number 20 or 30 times until the call was answered by Shirley Zylo. Nikki asked Zylo why she had called her and how she had her number, and they did not know each other. Zylo replied that she had intended to call her secretary, also named Nikki, and that she did not know why the other Nikki's number was in her contact list. Is anybody buying this? She presumed that her son Jason must have added it. Zylo denies that the event occurred, and it had not been publicly revealed whether Nikki's claim was investigated by authorities. Okay, well, the coincidence stack thickens here. I mean, that's huge. So if Nikki's not lying, unless people think Nikki set up the hit, why would she be lying about this? And were the phone records checked? Apparently it's unknown. They didn't disclose whether they checked it or not. It seems like this is critical. And I'm assuming Nikki... So, I wonder if anybody flat out asked Nikki, did it sound like Shirley with a fake accent? Did the voice sound similar? In February each year, Buziak's father, Jeff, leads an annual walk in remembrance of her and to keep her case in the public eye. August 2017, a comment was posted on a message board at the investigative website run by Jeff Buziak stating, quote, "I killed Lindsay and stupid cops will never prove it," end quote. So again, before we read too much into that, almost every case with any kind of media attention has a certain amount of trolls. So almost every high profile case kind of has comments similar to that on the internet. In 2020, the Capital Daily requested a release of public records relating to the case and reported previously unpublished info. The documents revealed that the police had been aware of 2 phones used by the suspects, one with a Vancouver number only used to contact Buziak, and another used to check the voicemail of the first phone. The info revealed there had been unusual internet activity associated with Buziak before her murder, and that police initially suspected that violent criminals on her Facebook friends list may have played a role in her murder. In February 2021, Saanich police announced that the advancements in DNA analysis and other tech had created new leads in the case. I believe that was the last update. The FBI actually joined the investigation into the murder of Victoria realtor Lindsay Buziak. This was reported with this new DNA information. So from this article here on Vancouver Island, CTV News, published February 1st, 2021, says here, no charges have been laid, but Anastasiades, Saanich police constable, said that investigators are confident that people with key details could be ready to talk now. What does that mean? So in 2021, he's making this announcement. Saanich police is making the announcement that people with key details could be ready to talk now. We know there is likely info that has not been shared, he says in the video statement. We believe people familiar with the circumstances surrounding this case remain in the community. It's not too late to come forward. So is this just an incompetent police begging for leads, or is there something behind that statement? I mean, this is truly a mind-shocking case. I wasn't expecting this many layers here. There's too many layers and too many coincidences to the Xylos. There's just too many. There's just too many here. So that was the last update. So that's 3 years ago. Apparently nothing since then. It's just too much of a coincidence that she's trying to get in touch with this friend who's busted a week in the largest drug bust in Alberta history a week before her murder, and she's trying to get in contact with this friend while having her phone tapped, while the house that she ends up murdered in is on the cul-de-sac that her boyfriend's mother's business associate and friend owns. And furthermore, now we have Nikki, this close friend of Buziak, claimed that this number was answered by Shirley Xylo. I mean, is that 5 coincidences too many? I mean, that's not one too many. That's quite a few too many. Quite a few too many. I mean, it's truly, truly mind-shocking here. But let's get a little deeper. Let's get a little deeper now. Get some more details here. So chillingcrimes.com did a write-up on this August 3rd, 2020. Quote from Jeff Buziak here: I'm not just doing this for her, I'm doing this for all other missing and murdered women and girls whose cases have gone unsolved. I mean, clearly there's a competency issue. I don't know why there's so many coincidence theorist, authority worshipping cultist bootlickers out there. They just hang on every word. Oh, police ruled this out. Or this person hasn't been. I mean, they just hang on every word of these incompetent people. I mean, you're depending on which jurisdiction, your murder is more likely to be unsolved than solved. Can you imagine those stats for airline pilots? I mean, would anybody go fly if you were more likely to not make it to your destination than make it? And yet there are so many goof bootlickers out there who just take the word of law enforcement investigators on everything. It's a bizarre thing. Not that they're intentionally complicit, and this isn't a revolutionary concept, but humans are fallible. I mean, it's really not that hard. But for whatever reason, online true crime communities, I mean, their brains are just wired for bootlicking and not for logic. Not for logic and reason. So if law enforcement is more likely to not solve your murder than solve it, I mean, how much of a goof does one have to be to hallucinate that they're competent? If a pilot is more likely to not get you to your destination than to get you to your destination, would pilots have any bootlickers in that kind of? I mean, would pilots have any bootlickers or defenders? I mean, oh, well, sometimes maybe you make it to your destination unharmed, sometimes. Although the true stats are impossible to truly determine, because how many times have police so-called solved a crime by getting the wrong person, and it's not found out till years later? So perhaps it's not only they're slightly more likely to not solve your crime. I mean, depending on what the true wrongful conviction number is, police might be incredibly more likely to not solve your crime accurately than solve it. Now, with that kind of incompetence, I mean, why is anybody putting blind faith in law enforcement investigators? Not that there aren't good investigators out there. I mean, there are good investigators out there with great track records. But that doesn't appear to be anywhere near the norm, anywhere near the majority. Those seem to be outliers. So let's continue here with chilling crimes. It was the 2nd of February 2008, a Saturday. 24-year-old Lindsay Buziak had work that day. Lindsay was Remax Camosun realtor in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. It was the perfect job for Lindsay, as she was outgoing and friendly. On the 31st of January 2008, so this is what? 2 days after this huge drug bust and arrest? Enough time, 28, 29, 30, a couple days after this huge drug bust, and now she's getting a call. Is that enough time for information to get to certain people after this huge drug bust involving a former friend of hers or a current friend of hers, of her ex-boyfriends, who she's trying to contact? That's tough. Lindsay received a call from a woman asking if Lindsay would show her a property. The woman said that she wanted to buy a house with her husband and gave Lindsay some specific details about what they wanted. She had a budget of $1 million and wanted to purchase a property fast. Lindsay was in line to earn some great commission on that kind of budget. If the couple bought the house, it would be her biggest sale to date. She agreed to take on the woman as a client and found the perfect house to show her. The showing was arranged for the 2nd of February at 5:30 p.m. I mean, that's definitely an alarm bell ringing type situation, because if she's only done a couple of small sales, why would a highly prominent 7-figure client want an inexperienced real estate agent? That should have, and the fact that her boyfriend encouraged her to take the client, I mean, that's suspect as well. And the fact that he's going randomly to a repair shop just to have an alibi. And after sitting outside the house, he decides to go park on another street. I mean, that's like 3 bridges too far. And that's without even getting into his mother and her connections. I mean, the level of coincidence here is off the charts here. I mean, this is weird. This is definitely weird. Lindsay told her father about her new client. Her father, Jeff Buziak, was also a realtor in Calgary. According to Jeff, Lindsay thought there was something a little off about the call. Always trust your gut, people. How many times have we seen cases where comments were made and people decided to go against their gut? The call she had received was, or just, be well armed and always carry and always assume everybody's always trying to kill you. I mean, some people say it's not good to be paranoid, but is perfect paranoia perfect awareness? Is it? Better to be paranoid than dead, right? The call she had received was made to her personal cell. Normally, work calls are via the office or her work phone. But the woman who made the call said that one of Lindsay's other clients gave her Lindsay's phone number. Lindsay called the client, but they were out of town. See, that's curious. So what are the chances statistically? Okay, so she didn't have that many clients. I mean, how many former clients did she have? Because if it was 2, okay, maybe one of them was out of town. If she had maybe 7 or 8, and the one that's out of town is the one alleged to have given the cell number, I mean, that's kind of weird. Now, I would hope the police actually followed up on this particular former client, because were they out of town for a reason? Either way, Lindsay was still going. It was a great opportunity, and Lindsay was keen to get ahead and start selling expensive properties. That day, the 2nd of February, Lindsay and her boyfriend, Jason Zylo, met for a late lunch. Lindsay and Jason were in a relationship for around a year and lived together in a property owned by Jason's mother, Shirley. So they also live Jason's mother, Shirley Zylo's property. And their phones are both tapped. Let's not forget that, especially the coincidence theorists out there. Let's not forget their phones are both tapped. They initially lived at Jason's mother's vacation home at Shawnigan Lake near Victoria, but moved to another property she owned in central Victoria so they would be closer to work. They seemed happy together, according to Jeff. Lindsay had some reservations about the... They seemed happy together, but according to Jeff, Lindsay had some reservations about the relationship. She found Jason was too possessive and controlling at times. That was not the sort of man Lindsay wanted. She was a free spirit and extremely ambitious and determined. That being said, she did tell Jason about her new client and the appointment. She referred to the caller and the caller's husband as the Mexicans. Jason told her he would meet her at the house later as he needed to sign some papers for a property sale he was involved in himself. So he would be there if there was any trouble or any problems. And then he conveniently goes to some repair shop during the critical minutes to give himself an alibi, and then returns and then parks on a different street afterwards. Oh, man. Oh, man, this is tough. This is tough. Jason and Lindsay had their lunch 4:30 p.m. that afternoon, and afterwards they both went their separate ways. Jason picked up a friend, Cohen Oatman, for a scrub hockey game. They stopped off at an auto business, and surveillance footage picked them up arriving and leaving. It's almost as if they scoped it out to make sure it had surveillance footage. Because not every place has surveillance footage, especially back then. Jason then headed towards DeSousa Place. DeSousa Place is the street where the house Lindsay was showing was located. It is a small cul-de-sac containing just 4 homes. DeSousa Court is named after developer Joe DeSousa, a friend and business associate of Shirley Zylo, Jason's mother. The house itself was at the outer end of the cul-de-sac on the intersection of DeSousa Place and Torquay Drive. The side of the property and the fence of the back garden runs parallel to Torquay Drive. The house seemed perfect for what Lindsay's client was looking for. It had been on the market for a year, but it was brand new and vacant, so they would be able to move in immediately. It had 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms and a $965,000 asking price. You know what's weird? Now, I don't know the real estate market there, but you would think that if the caller... How many houses fit the description of what the caller wanted? Was this one of the only houses, and they knew it would be on DeSousa Court? On the other hand, is it kind of dumb if you're DeSousa that you're literally there doing construction that particular day that you set up a murder for? Or were involved in that in some capacity? That seems kind of dumb too, so I don't know. I don't know, that's kind of tough. That's kind of tough as well. Lindsay arrived just before 5:30 p.m. and pulled into her car into the driveway. She took out her paperwork to take a quick look at the house details and entered the home at 5:29 p.m. The time was recorded as Lindsay had to open a lockbox which was connected to a computer system. Two people in the cul-de-sac saw a man and a woman walk toward the house. Lindsay introduced herself and the three of them went into the house. Jason sent a text message to Lindsay to let her know he would be there in 10 to 15 minutes. She replied and told him they were there. He sent another text message at 5:38 p.m. and told her he was a couple of minutes away. The text message was never read. So he knew they were meeting at 5:30. So did he intentionally set himself up to be late so he could never get there during the critical minutes? Because he was supposed to be there just in case, right? Now, I mean, the whole thing was set up because she had a weird feeling about it. So he was supposed to be there just in case. Clearly, he wasn't. Intentional or not. Again, I don't claim anything is true or untrue. I don't claim anybody is innocent or guilty. We just go over every single possible theory here on Mindshock. Many of them are obviously contradictory, so they can't all be true. I don't claim any of them are true or untrue. When Jason got there around 5:45 p.m., he parked outside and then a few minutes later moved around to Torquay Drive. There was no sign of Lindsay. When he first got there, he saw a man and woman open the front door, but they went back inside. So that's the other thing that kind of doesn't make sense, because if they are trying to leave through the front, do they not know he was going to be there then? Because if their plan was to casually stroll the way they came and go all the way around to Torquay where they were possibly parked, yeah, that's a little weird too. Then again, they don't want to be too conspicuous darting through the backyard or a fence, so maybe. Jason and Cohen sat in the car for a while, but they started to get a little worried. Lindsay had still not responded to Jason's text message. They went up to the house. The front door was locked. So there's a couple things that don't jive here. If he's the son of this rich real estate developer family, that doesn't seem like a type, and from the descriptions that Lindsay gave of him, possessive, controlling, etc., this doesn't appear to be the type of guy who's either super laid back or docile. This is a guy that would probably, and his mother's friend owns the entire cul-de-sac, basically. This, wouldn't he just march straight in there? Why would he be reserved about just going in the house? Just going, he could be the next client for the next scheduled showing. How does anybody know he's not? Like, why would he be self-conscious about that? It doesn't seem like this would be from all descriptions, it doesn't seem like this guy would be self-conscious about it. Now, if he is involved in the hit, he would probably wait as long as possible before going inside, right? Again, I'm just speculating. I don't claim anything is true or not true. But it does not seem strange that he could have been the next client in line. Why wouldn't he go at least open the door, not necessarily start wandering around the house, but open the door, call for somebody, call her, hello, I'm interested in seeing this house. Is this house for sale? If there's a for sale sign in the front, why wouldn't you go up and knock on the door? Like, why wouldn't you do that? It's just kind of weird. I wonder if Cohen has been, I didn't see too much information about him. I wonder what he knows. So they went up to the house. The front door was locked. Jason called the police. It was 6:05 p.m. Yeah, so he waited a darn long time before calling the po-po. Cohen went around to the back door. It was open. He entered the house and opened the front door for Jason. So Cohen might not be in on this. He entered the house, opened the front door for Jason. Jason ran straight upstairs and into the master bedroom. Wait, how would he know to run there? He found Lindsay on the floor. She had been stabbed multiple times. She was dead. Jason called the police a second time. It was 6:11 when he found Lindsay's body. Nobody else was in the home at the time. When police arrived at the scene, it became apparent that whoever killed Lindsay went to the house that day with the sole purpose of killing her. She had not been SA'd, and all of her belongings were still there. Nothing was missing. Police believed that Lindsay was stabbed between 5:38 p.m. and 5:41 p.m. How convenient. The critical minutes when Jason decided to hang out and then go park on another street after visiting a mechanical shop with CCTV. Jason and Cohen were brought into custody as they were found at the crime scene when police arrived, but they were later released when police checked out their alibi. Police saw the surveillance footage of them at the auto business. How convenient. Video footage shows Jason describing when he entered, what he saw when he entered the house. So let's look at his testimony here. See what everybody's feelings on this guy. See what we can get from his body language. See if we can get a read on this guy. I'll have the video up in a second.
Which side of the door was going on when the door opened for you?
Right where you are.
So
Yeah.
So I'll do that. I'm just
Yeah.
so I know where. So he opens it like this. Does he open it all the way, or you just?
He unlocked the door.
Okay, he unlocks it. Yeah. So I unlock it. Okay, it's unlocked.
I just opened it.
Okay. So
I don't know if his hand. I know that because I heard it unlock. And
Okay.
The second he unlocked it, I pushed it open.
okay.
He was already in front of me,
Yeah.
and I said, "I'm running upstairs."
Okay.
And I was yelling. I'm like, "Lindsay, Lindsay, Lindsay."
And where did Cohen go?
He went straight ahead.
He went straight ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
So just hang on a sec there.
yeah.
So he went straight ahead,
Yeah.
and you went running upstairs.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me go upstairs first, and then you can talk your way, go up the stairs, and then we'll go to the end, all right?
Mm-hmm.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I was running inside the house. I just came running up the stairs.
Do you remember grabbing the banister at all, or?
I don't see any super major red flags so far.
Down there.
Because he's seeming to really try to remember as opposed to having memorized a script of lies. Again, this doesn't mean he didn't hire these people, just general impressions so far.
Okay. What else were you doing? Did you see anything? Did you hear anything? Did you smell anything? Kind of put yourself back there into that exact time.
The time I got from the door to upstairs was probably 2 seconds.
Okay, so you're...
Like I was running up the stairs.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I didn't walk. The second I opened the door, I yelled, "Lindsay, Lindsay," and then I ran up these stairs as fast as I could.
Okay.
So I ran up.
Interesting. I don't know. I couldn't read too much from that. I'm going to get into more details in a second, but Yeah, kind of hard to get a good read. Nothing really jumped out there. I'm gonna finish this article and then I have another news clip here that some people may have forgotten about, which I think is very, very telling. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, back to the write-up here. So Lindsay had been stabbed over 40 times. There were multiple stab wounds to the head and chest. Police believed she was stabbed when she turned around to show the couple the ensuite bathroom in the master bedroom. They believed she was attacked from behind as there was nothing to indicate that she knew what was about to happen. There were no defensive wounds in her body whatsoever. There was a call placed from her BlackBerry to an acquaintance, but it was a muffled sound. Police believed it was placed accidentally during the attack. That's interesting. What if it wasn't? Huh. Police tried to trace the couple that Lindsay had shown the house to. The two people that saw Lindsay meet the man and woman outside the house described the woman's dress and what it looked like. She had blonde hair and was wearing a colorful dress. They described the man as being a Caucasian man, and he was over 6 feet with dark hair. You know what's interesting, though? If you're a female hit woman, would you wear a very distinctive dress? I mean, I don't know. That'd make you more memorable, as opposed to the guy if he's just in a random suit. You know, nice suit, but whatever. Huh. Police traced the call that Lindsay received from her new client. It was made from a cell phone purchase in Vancouver 3 months before the murder and was paid for with cash, and the name of the phone was registered. So this phone was purchased right around the time. So Buziak, hold on a second. So 8 weeks prior to her murder, Buziak tried to contact the friend of her ex-boyfriend while on a visit to Calgary physically. So not just by phone. Or maybe by phone, but while she was actually there in Calgary. So that's 8 weeks prior. And so roughly a month before that is when this phone was purchased. Interesting. I wonder how many other trips to Calgary there were. I mean, how far did they go back tracing her movements? I mean, how thorough of an investigation was this? Because if she was also there a month before that, like, where was she when this phone was purchased? And what was her phone activity at the time this phone was purchased? So then it was paid for with cash, name on the phone, Paulo Rodriguez. It was only used to contact Lindsay. It had not been used for anything else. Even though the phone was bought in November 2007, it was only activated late January 2008 in Vancouver. The phone traveled to the island 24 hours prior to Lindsay's murder. Vancouver is from where the first calls to Lindsay were made, confirmed by hits on cell phone towers in the city. Police said at least a half a dozen calls were made to Lindsay after her murder. The cell phone was never used again. Lindsay's murder had been planned with great precision. In just a matter of minutes, she was stabbed multiple times and very little evidence was left behind. Police began looking into Lindsay's background. Her relationship with Jason had been a good one, but she told Jeff that she was considering ending the relationship. Police knew that Jason wasn't at the house at the time Lindsay was murdered, but they looked into whether he was involved in her murder. Jason agreed to take a lie detector test, and he passed it. Now, again, a brain fingerprint scan would be a better metric. Jeff told police that Lindsay visited him in Calgary on the 14th of December 2007 and told him she saw something bad. He believed she was referring to something that had happened in Victoria, but police discovered that when she was in Calgary, she was in contact with an old friend. Her friend was a relative of Erickson Lopez de l'Alcazar. Police do not know why she made contact with him via phone and via Facebook during the trip. But just a few days before Lindsay's murder, Erickson was charged in the largest cocaine trafficking case in Alberta. Shortly after Lindsay had returned to Victoria from Calgary, the cocaine trafficking ring that Erickson was involved with got busted. A lot of people lost a lot of money. The drugs were worth millions of dollars. Police had to consider whether Lindsay's murder was connected. Did somebody believe she gave info to the police, and as such, did someone from that drug gang want her dead? Here's the thing. If she made an anonymous tip of what she saw, the police would never know. So all these goof investigators saying, oh no, she wasn't an informant. I mean, how would they know if she had made an anonymous tip and someone found out about it? Or she told somebody else that they didn't know that she knew? Because again, if this is drug related in some way, this might be an undisclosed friend or acquaintance that wasn't part of her regular circle of friends. Is everybody perplexed yet? So now we have another coincidence that she told her father. Well, we have another two coincidences. Well, we have multi-layered coincidences. So when she was in Calgary, she told her father she saw something bad. See, how are the coincidence theorists going to write that off? And she's in contact with someone known to have been busted in the largest drug bust in Alberta. I mean, the amount of coincidence here, and she's got her phone tapped. Why is her phone tapped? For all the coincidence theorists who think, oh yeah, she's not involved in any of this. Now, even if she's not, clearly, the cops think she is. And if the cops think she is, maybe a lot of other unsavory characters thought she was, even if she wasn't. Coincidence theorists obviously don't have the mental capacity to consider that option. Police also looked into her past relationships. Before she dated Jason, she was in a long-term relationship with Matt McDuff. Interesting name, but police did not consider him a suspect in her killing. However, when she dated him, their phones were tapped because of his association with Jasmohan Singh Bains. Jasmohan was involved in the trafficking and sale of illegal narcotics in British Columbia and Alberta, and police uncovered information that led to the BC legislature raids in 2003 via the phone tapping. Wait, so how many different individuals is she involved with that have gotten busted? But there was nothing to suggest that Lindsay was involved in drugs herself, knew anything about any of the deals, or informed police of any sort of activity involving drugs. So police had no idea why Lindsay was murdered or who was involved. I mean, there's plenty to suggest that. She's in direct contact with multiple individuals. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean she's using or dealing, but when you're in direct contact with these people, I mean, how can someone say that her murder might not be related? Police have said the case is not a cold case and is still an open investigation. They believe Lindsay may have been targeted by a man and woman posing as potential buyers, and it was based on mistaken information they had about Lindsay. Now, that at least we have some kind of theory there. I mean, at least that's plausible. But Jeff is frustrated at how long it has taken to find out what happened to his daughter. He went on Dr. Phil to highlight the case. He said the police are incompetent and covering up who killed his daughter. In 2010, police held a press conference to state that the Zylo family were not involved in Lindsay's murder. they did this because there was a lot of public speculation that they knew something about what happened to Lindsay. Well, especially if a friend is to be believed. So let's go over her father's appearance on a news broadcast all the way back.
Lindsay.
So this would be let me get the exact year here. So this was posted August 4th, 2010, 13 years ago, so quite some time ago now.
Buziak's father says private detectives and volunteers have zeroed in on 5 people they believe are suspects in the realtor's murder. Lindsay Buziak was found stabbed to death in a home in Saanich she was showing in February 2008. Despite a massive investigation and a $100,000 reward, Saanich police have yet to make an arrest. That reward has now been withdrawn. Jeff Buziak says in Calgary today the information on the suspects has been shared with Saanich investigators.
The reward was withdrawn. Now, again, if there's some kind of high-level corruption here and the police are actually giving press conferences saying that the Xylo family is not involved, I mean, how do they know for sure, though, if the case is unsolved, though? It's kind of weird.
And he now expects an arrest. A News reporter Stephen Andrew has the latest.
We have 5 people that we're targeting. We know who they all are, and we know why.
The father of Lindsay Buziak says he and a team of volunteers, including a private detective, have been working day and night to find his daughter's killers. He says that work has now paid off, but he's not naming suspects.
Well, right now what I'm willing to say is that we believe the people know Lindsay.
One person Buziak and his team are not targeting, Lindsay's former boyfriend.
Our list of people does not include Jason Zalo.
Okay, so her father doesn't think it's the boyfriend. So is this connected to her ex-boyfriend and that circle of people? But why? I mean, yeah,
Jeff Buziak's revelation comes nearly 2.5 years after his daughter was found stabbed to death in a Saanich home. Investigators believe the realtor was lured to the home by her killers, posing as prospective homebuyers. But solving the murder has...
So in that reenactment, the woman actually has a black jacket over the dress, so that's interesting.
It's been tough for Saanich police.
I don't know if that's accurate reenactment or not.
With leads drying up, Lindsay's family and the Greater Victoria Real Estate Board put up a $100,000 reward for information. 3 days ago, the family took the reward off the table.
Oh, did they take it off because they already know everything?
Police say the move was not unexpected.
It's apparent to our investigators that a monetary stimulus is not what the person or persons with information in this incident are looking for.
Does that sound like a competent information, a competent investigator stumbling on his words like that?
If Jeff Buziak's investigation has led to solid leads, the reward money might now be a moot point. Jeff Buziak says he's given some of that information to Saanich investigators and to the U.S. television program Dateline NBC. Saanich police say they don't know when that program is going to air, but they expect it will be sometime later this month.
And hoping that that brings this investigation to the public's attention, to a much wider audience.
If you're seeing this guy, is this the type of guy you would want your child's case in the hands of? I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking.
In the hopes that it may assist our investigating detectives.
But Jeff Buziak says investigators have the information they need. He expects police to follow up on his leads and make an arrest. And for the people Jeff Buziak believes murdered his daughter, he has this warning.
That you can run, but you can't hide. We're there. We're right on you. We know who you are, and it's just a matter of time. You're going to have to take responsibility for your actions. And that day is coming sooner than they think.
It's kind of sad because this was already 13 years ago. So if they really do have the names, what's the issue? Is it just sheer police incompetence?
Lindsay's family, friends, and
Alien Big Cat 23 asked, how's he know? Well, apparently he hired a lot of private investigators who actually did some work.
the team of investigators looking for her killers hope that day is soon. In Victoria, Stephen Andrew, A News.
So, yeah, that's interesting. 5 individuals. That's a lot. They have 5 names and supposedly quite a bit of evidence. I mean, how do we deal with her friend Nikki, who said that somebody called her with that fake accent? She called back the number a bunch of times, and Zylo's mother picked up the phone and then claimed that this Nikki's number was in her contact list for an unknown reason because she didn't know her. If this story is true, I mean, how is that explained? So what's weird here there's another article here, capitaldaily.ca, January 30th, 2023, the case the internet got wrong. A new investigation sheds light on Lindsay Buziak's unsolved murder, revealing a vast web of misinfo. In 2019, Capital Daily embarked on a long-term investigation to uncover new info about one of the true crime's more frequently cited unsolved murders. After 3 years, 200 interviews, and gaining access to more than 1,500 pages of court docs filed by police to support their requests for orders and warrants for the investigation, it is finally ready to reveal its reporting. The result answers questions that have eluded 15 years of heavy media coverage and dispels misinfo that police say could be damaging their case. So the beginning of the article, they just talk about TikTokers and all that nonsense. Okay, so let's get to the details here. Until now, accounts of Lindsay's murder have largely been driven by her father, Jeff Buziak, who has been among a few people close to Lindsay willing to speak publicly. In Jeff's telling, Jason Zylo's mother, Shirley, was a controlling and overbearing presence. Wait a second. So he said Jason Zylo wasn't involved. Did he not? He didn't say Shirley wasn't involved in that clip, did he? Hold on. I want to hear what he said again here, because
Lindsay Buziak's father, she was showing in February, $1,000. Jeff Buziak said,
and we know why.
The father of Lindsay Buziak says he and a team of volunteers, including a private detective, have been working day and night to find his daughter's killers. He says that work has now paid off, but he's not naming suspects.
Well, right now what I'm willing to say is that we believe the people know Lindsay.
One person Buziak and his team are not targeting, Lindsay's former boyfriend.
okay, so that's one person. So he's saying it's not him. He didn't say it wasn't his mother on the list of 5 people. Interesting. Very, very interesting. So continuing the article here. So in Jeff's telling, Jason Zylo's mother, Shirley, was a controlling and overbearing presence in Lindsay and Jason's relationship, and purchased and renovated a lakefront house for the couple to move into. Jeff has also said that Lindsay told him she saw something she shouldn't have. A claim that appears in many true crime versions of Lindsay's murder. So I guess there was no specification of whether she saw it, on where she saw it. So, So was it in Calgary with her in the area of her ex-boyfriend and his associates, or was it in a Xylo property? Huh. A Xylo property around Victoria. Huh. There's no specification of where she saw something she shouldn't have. In a rare interview, Lindsay's mother, Evelyn Reitmeyer, cast doubt on several of Jeff's claims. She said she didn't believe the Xylos were involved in her daughter's murder, and she said she understood Shirley's decision to take legal action against her ex-husband and 2 people who allegedly posted regularly to lindsaybuziakmurder.com, a website he created with the help of 2 supporters. So apparently Shirley's ex-husband and 2 other people posted regularly and possibly said some things against her. Huh. And she actually sued. And the lawsuit includes Lindsay's father, Jeff. I mean, is everybody following here? I mean, this is quite the web. Huh. There's not a ton of info in this lawsuit here. Just there's, defamatory information posted. Okay. You belong in prison, comments like that. Okay, so not a lot there, but okay, continuing on here. Reitmeyer also made it clear that Jeff does not represent her and that she has minimal contact with him. She said she was disgusted by the media frenzy and speculation surrounding her daughter's murder. The internet speculation, the sensationalization, the misinformation, and the defamation, that's a lot of mations, linked to Lindsay's passing are also negative, while Lindsay herself was such a bright light of positivity and joy. Reitmeyer wrote in a statement following her interview with Capital Daily, "It's all so unnecessary and has made a horrific situation even worse. I am hopeful that one day soon justice will be served, which will put an end to it all." It also says in this article that Lindsay herself was very fashion conscious. So perhaps the dress is also some kind of veiled message. Her first job was actually as a young teen at the Sirens clothing store in Mayfair Mall. Huh. When Lindsay was 18, she started dating Matt McDuff. McDuff said on Dateline that he and Lindsay had a stormy relationship, although he denied ever being violent with her. When Capital Daily reached McDuff by phone in 2021, he declined to speak at length, saying he didn't want his daughters reading about a prior girlfriend. Capital Daily followed up with him more recently, but he said he was traveling and unable to speak for the next few months. McDuff was in another relationship at the time of Lindsay's murder and denied having anything to do with her death in his interview with Dateline. Lindsay's relationship with McDuff ended around the middle of 2006, according to Dateline that had no contact for months before the murder. But apparently she's contacted one of his friends, though, and possibly physically meeting him. That's weird. At some point, Lindsay became focused on a career in real estate. She enrolled in UBC Sauder School of Business Real Estate Trading Services program, got help with math from Helen Jones, a real estate tutor in Victoria. At Jones' workshop in 2005, Lindsay ran into Jason Zylo, who she knew from around the city, who'd previously played competitive hockey. "We just clicked," Jason, now 42, told Capital Daily. Lindsay passed her real estate exam June 06, becoming one of 20 real estate agents in Greater Victoria who were estimated to be under the age of 25, according to the Times columnist. Yeah, that is weird why somebody would want such an inexperienced agent. For most of the next year and a half, Lindsay worked for a real estate company called Maverick, which was marketing townhouses in the West Shore. Lindsay and Jason's paths crossed again around the same time Lindsay became licensed. By then, Lindsay and McDuff were calling it quits. According to Lindsay's friend Vicky Mackey, Lindsay was impressed by the Zylos. She really looked up to the fact that Jason was in the real estate industry and his mom was too. Mackey told Capital Daily it seemed like she was happy with his mom and excited to be part of their circle. Reitmeyer said Lindsay specifically advertised Jason as not being a drug user. That was a big deal for her, she told Capital Daily. In early 2007, Shirley purchased a home on the Shawnigan Lake. Shirley told Capital Daily the home was purchased after the deaths of both her parents and that it was intended as a vacation spot for family and friends. Lindsay and Jason spent the summer in a basement suite of the lake house and had free run of the upstairs when no one else was there. Jason has long said that Shirley purchased the home for the young couple to move into, a claim that for some seemed to suggest that Lindsay was being enticed away from her family. But Shirley, Evelyn Reitmeyer, and Sarah Buziak all disputed that claim. "The house on the lake that I own is a family home," Shirley told Capital Daily. "It was never bought for Lindsay and Jason." Eventually, Lindsay joined Remax Camosun, the same brokerage that employed Shirley, Jason, and Ryan Zylo. Okay, so basically, all of that entire Zylo family is at the same real estate brokerage, so they have all the info on her private cell phones and everything. Interesting. She and Jason moved into a one-bedroom condo in the Inner Harbor owned by the Zylo family. After starting at Remax, Lindsay was involved in 8 property transactions that grossed a total of $3.2 million. December 15th, 2007, Lindsay visited her father in Calgary, telling him that Jason didn't seem to have the same ambition as her. She also told other friends, including Vicky Mackey, that she wasn't happy in the relationship and was considering breaking it off. Jason didn't dispute that he and Lindsay had relationship troubles, but said as far as he was aware, their relationship wasn't ending. "We never talked about breaking up," he told Capital Daily. Sarah Buziak described the relationship positively, saying the couple seemed happy to her and that Jason treated her well. Yeah, well, just because they didn't discuss it, that doesn't mean that that's not what she was thinking, especially if she's telling her father, or I guess according to her father, she's telling her father that Jason isn't ambitious or as ambitious as she is. Friday, February 1st, 2008, Lindsay got a cold call from a 778 area code phone number. The caller was a woman with a heavy accent who was apparently interested in buying a home. Lindsay would later describe the accent as Spanish or Mexican. The caller provided a name, but Lindsay doesn't appear to have written it down in her other notes from the call. Well, it would have been a fake name anyway, probably. The caller explained that her husband was being transferred from Vancouver to Victoria and they needed a brand new $1 million home. That's kind of a weird thing to say. It's almost like you're intentionally baiting somebody. Like, wouldn't you just say, we're looking for a pretty nice home, I mean, specifically $1 million home. I don't know. She wanted to meet at 5:30 p.m. the next evening, tour some houses, and make an immediate purchase. When Lindsay asked the caller who had referred her, she seemed to say it was a friend of her husband's, according to court docs. After hanging up, Lindsay saved the woman's phone number in her phone as $1 million and began looking for properties to show. Though she had no 7-figure listings at the time, she could sell another agent's property and still make a sizable commission. While the potential for such a large sale so early in her career excited Lindsay, she also thought the call was weird, according to court docs. As the next 24 hours unfolded, her concerns only seemed to grow. Police believe the person or people in possession of the phone used to contact Lindsay within a time frame that is still blacked out in court documents were directly involved in the murder and may be considered suspects. On the SPD's website, the purported clients Lindsay eventually met with are described as still unidentified. In 2009, police released a composite profile of the female suspect. Sometime after the initial call with Lindsay, the phone used to contact her traveled from Vancouver to Greater Victoria. Around the same time, Lindsay went about her plans for the evening, going for a walk and having dinner with Shirley Zilo while Jason played hockey. Arriving at the condo the couple shared, Shirley walked into the foyer in time to overhear the end of a phone conversation between Lindsay and the caller. She had these houses that she was showing, Shirley told Capital Daily. It was all kind of set up. So there was more than one house that she was planning to show, and the first house that she was planning to show just so happened to be the friend and business associate of Shirley's. Interesting. After the calls, Lindsay and Shirley walked to the downtown area before ending up at a sushi restaurant. Though Shirley said she repeatedly offered to show the houses on Lindsay's behalf, she said the offers were made for a completely different reason than Lindsay's apparent unease over her mystery client. Lindsay was involved in organizing a surprise bachelorette party for a friend on the mainland, scheduled for the following night, and may have planned on attending after showing houses to the couple. I sat right across from her and offered her help, not because she told me she was scared, Shirley told Capital Daily. I offered her help because she wanted to go to Vancouver. That sounds like damage control. I mean, can anybody verify this? That there was this bachelor surprise. She was the one. Okay, it doesn't say she was the sole person organizing. Now, has this been verified that she was one of the people organizing? Doesn't say here. Court documents suggest police believe the person or people possessing the phone arrived on a BC ferries sailing before traveling south along a major route into the city. I mean, didn't they check all the CCTV footage? Like, why would they not check all the footage? With that kind of a bright dress, it actually might be visible through the windows of a vehicle, maybe. According to CTV Vancouver Island, the phone used to contact Lindsay arrived in Victoria the night before the murder and pinged off a cell tower near Cook and Finlayson, close to downtown. Can they not pull all the CTV footage from all those areas? That's kind of weird. Lindsay was still awake when Jason returned to the condo around midnight. According to court documents, he and Lindsay talked about the showing set up for the next day. He described his girlfriend's mood as more inquisitive than fearful, wondering why the caller had chosen her, a new real estate agent with limited experience. Unless, of course, this is all damage control for Shirley as well. Jason said he made the same offer as his mother because of Lindsay's plans to attend her friend's bachelorette party. If she was concerned, she wouldn't say no to going to Vancouver, he said. Can anybody outside of the Zilo family verify this party's happening? That's my next question. Sometime the next morning, the purported client phoned Lindsay and Jason at home. Jason said Lindsay was out and asked the woman if she wanted Lindsay's cell number, which the woman told Jason she already had. To police, Jason described the caller as having a broken Spanish accent. So why is she calling the home number? And did Lindsay never give her the home number? So she has both Lindsay's cell and home number? That's kind of weird. At some point, police believe there was a 10-minute call between Lindsay and the suspect or suspects. I mean, I'm still wondering, why would they call the house? That's really weird. Although there has been speculation about why a now infamous address in Gordon Head was chosen, with some suggesting the prospective buyers wanted to view that home specifically. Police believe Lindsay provided the suspects with the address, according to court docs. The court had given Lindsay several parameters, including that she wanted a separate area for a housekeeper. Lindsay appeared to choose the Gordon Head house because it fit the caller's proportion criteria and budget, which Lindsay had copied down in her daytimer. According to court documents, police believe the suspect or suspects may have traveled to Gordon Head ahead of time, familiarizing themselves with the area and possibly planning escape routes. At around 2 p.m., Lindsay was at Remax Camo Sun's head office on Chatterton Way. According to court docs, Lindsay was freaked out and asked 2 receptionists to search the caller's name and phone number in a company database. They were unable to find any real estate history in Greater Victoria relating to the info provided. Another colleague, Cal Faber, told Capital Daily he overheard Lindsay talking with a small group of coworkers about her new client. Faber, a former RCMP officer, said he and others were listening to Lindsay's story, offered to accompany her to the Gordon Head address, but Lindsay told them not to worry, Jason was coming. She had full confidence in the fact that her boyfriend was going to be there. So, wow, Faber said. Yeah, and this is not looking good for Jason, and yet her father appears to, unless that's a diversion, unless he's saying he's not focused on Jason, even if Jason is one of them, just to keep him, I don't know, just as a diversion. I guess we have to consider that as well. After lunch, Lindsay went home to change. Jason went to a meeting at SHC Autographs, a nearby auto detailing shop. While in the meeting, Jason got several calls from Cohen Oatman, a friend and colleague who played on the same hockey team. While Lindsay was at a friend's bachelorette party in Vancouver, Jason was looking forward to playing hockey and having a few beers, according to Oatman's account to police. Shortly after 5 p.m., Oatman drove to SHC, left his car, climbed into Jason's Range Rover. Jason explained he'd gotten a call from Lindsay and said he was going to check on her. But wasn't he already supposed to be there, though? Oatman agreed to go with him before they continued on with their plans to play hockey. According to court docs, Lindsay texted Jason the address of where she was headed and asked him to follow her. Sometime before 5:30 p.m., Lindsay arrived at 1702 DeSousa Place in Gordon Head. The DeSousa Place cul-de-sac and house Lindsay planned to show were both so new they didn't show up on Range Rover's GPS. Around 5:30 p.m., Jason called Lindsay for directions. Lindsay was about to provide them when the purported clients appeared. "Oh, I've got to go. They're here," she said. Before hanging up, Jason asked Lindsay to text him the directions. Around the same time, multiple eyewitnesses said they saw Lindsay shaking hands with a couple. He was tall, dark hair, long jacket. She had short blonde hair and wore a swirling black and red dress. Lindsay had let them inside the house, and the showing began. A few minutes later, the tour headed upstairs. Lindsay sent Jason a text with directions to the house. Jason, meanwhile, had phoned his brother for directions and was making his way there. The main bedroom was at the top of the stairs. As Lindsay turned to show... Let me get the floor plan back out here. As Lindsay turned to show the ensuite bathroom, she was stabbed from behind with an edged weapon. Reports of more than 40 or 50 stab wounds are false and exaggerated. So, too, are reports that certain parts of Lindsay's body were targeted during the attack. According to info obtained by Capital Daily, there were multiple stab wounds, nicks, and cuts on Lindsay's body, including her chest and abdomen. As of press time, there are at least 9 stories published by traditional media outlets containing misinfo about the number of stab wounds. At the attack at around 5:41 p.m. triggered a pocket dial to a friend Lindsay was not in regular contact with, which resulted in a muffled voicemail message, according to Staff Sergeant Chris Horsley on Crime Watch Daily. That must be disturbing. Immediately after the stabbing, the suspects left the scene. A trail of bloody footprints was found on the staircase, according to court docs. Interesting. Huh. The suspect or suspects were in the process of regathering their shoes, apparently planning to walk out the front door. When Jason and Oatman showed up, the cast the man in the Range Rover's headlights. Believing the showing had just begun, Jason drove past the house as the man receded through the entry, presumably toward the rear of the house. Because Jason said Lindsay asked him not to make his presence known so he didn't interfere with the showing, Jason turned around in the driveway of a nearby house under construction and left the cul-de-sac to park a short distance away. I don't know, that actually kind of sounds like a well, again, we have to take his word for it that that's what she said. But she wanted him there without making his presence known. I mean, I don't know. Jason said he saw no sign of movement inside the house. He texted Lindsay asking if she was okay, but she didn't respond. After another few minutes, Jason said he repositioned his Range Rover closer to the house and tried calling her. She didn't answer. Around 6 p.m., after getting no response from Lindsay, Jason and Oatman got out of the vehicle and walked up the front entrance. The door was locked. Jason said he rang the doorbell repeatedly, but no one answered. He said he tried paging the listing agent, then called his mother for the agent's cell number. When Jason explained what was going on, the agent gave him the code for the garage. Jason tried the code, but it didn't work. Interesting. There was another door around the side of the house. Well, why didn't he just give him the code for the front door? Jason said... Okay, it was locked. Jason asked Oatman what he should do and whether he should break a window, according to Oatman's account. Oatman told Jason to call the police. At 6:05 p.m., Jason dialed 911, explaining the situation and adding that he'd have followed Lindsay to the house because she was kind of scared. Well, that's conflicting to his damage control narrative of she wasn't scared, she was just excited or whatever and thought it was strange. Here he's saying she was kind of scared, unless he's making that up to get the police to come. I don't know. Around the same time, Oatman signaled to him from the side of the house where there was a patio over the top of a wooden fence. Oatman and now Jason saw a set of open French doors that led out from the kitchen and dining areas into the enclosed backyard. After exiting the back door, the suspect or suspects may have escaped through a gap in the fence. Jason boosted Oatman over the fence. Oatman ran through the yard and into the empty house, unlocking the front door from the inside. Jason ran around from the back of the house and met him at the front. Once inside the foyer, Jason and Oatman split up. Oatman took the bottom floor. Jason ran upstairs, yelling Lindsay's name. Partway up the stairs, Jason told Capital Daily he could already see Lindsay slumped against the bedroom wall. According to court docs, Lindsay was lying in a large pool of blood. Oatman, who Jason had summoned, made a second call to 911 at 6:11 p.m. Explaining that they needed an ambulance right away. Jason tried to perform CPR, but it was too late. I could hear air, he told Capital Daily, describing how the air he breathed into Lindsay escaped through the stab wounds. Wow, that's really disturbing. Jason said he was in shock and that he still agonizes over arriving too late. I think about it all the time, he said. If I was 10 minutes earlier, if I went with her, would she still be alive? This is kind of curious, though, because if his mother is setting this up, and if he's not involved, would the mother risk him being in the house and being killed as well? Something to think about. At Saanich Police Headquarters, Jason told Capital Daily it took police hours and hours to begin their interview. It made me so mad, he said, adding that he thought police had wasted time and resources questioning him and Oatman. What they should have been doing is having 8, 10, 12 cars out searching right away. I think they totally botched the whole investigation in the first day. Very possible. Jason said he cooperated with investigators, took part in a poly, and turned over his phone and laptop he and Lindsay shared. Jason spoke to police multiple times and agreed to participate in a filmed reenactment of how he and Oatman discovered Lindsay. Part of his account were corroborated by court docs and other info obtained by Capital Daily. More than a decade later, Jason maintained that he had nothing to do with Lindsay's murder. I guess I'm just the easiest target, he told Capital Daily. In Jeff Buziak's interview with Dateline, he said Jason didn't show any outward signs of grief following the murder. However, Sarah Buziak told Capital Daily she worked for Jason after the murder and that he was hurt, confused, and sad. Wait. Sarah said she was interviewed by Dateline, but her interview was not included in the final version of the episode. Sarah also said she didn't watch any of the shows or listen to podcasts about her sister's murder. If I was to listen to what other people said or claimed they knew, it would probably drive me crazy. So her sister worked for Jason after the murder. So after, but not before. That's weird. Okay. In a 2012 blog post, wow, this case has so many twists and turns here. It's really hard to make heads or tails of all this stuff. In a 2012 blog post, Jeff said that he had just discovered a letter Lindsay left him that named people and described things that were going on prior to her death. She explains what she saw that she shouldn't have, he wrote. Though no letter has ever publicly surfaced, Jeff has continued to claim that Lindsay saw something and presented different theories and explanations about what that could be. More recently, Jeff has said that it was during a trip to see him in Calgary in December 2007 that Lindsay told him or gave him the impression that she saw something she shouldn't have, but said that Lindsay wouldn't tell him what it was. So wait, how did he discover this letter? So he didn't even reveal the circumstances of discovering this letter? Reitmeyer told Capital Daily Lindsay never mentioned seeing anything to her. I've talked to a lot of her girlfriends. She said nobody ever said anything like that. Well, she might have not trusted them with that information or not wanting to put them in danger. I mean, obviously, a girl would tell her father things she wouldn't tell her friends, and she would tell her friends things she wouldn't tell her father. I mean, you know, these are different roles here. Reitmeyer also said she contacted the police after learning that her ex-husband apparently discovered the letter, which Jeff said he had turned over to the authorities. Reitmeyer said police told her they never received it. Wait a second. So Reitmeyer's... Wait, the police after learning that her ex... So he, according to her, he said he gave it to authorities. According to her. Authorities said they never received it. Obviously, we have no idea who's telling the truth. Capital Daily reached out to Jeff to ask him a series of specific questions regarding the letter and many other issues reported in the article, some of which were based on emails provided to Capital Daily by one of Jeff's former website admins. Jeff didn't respond directly to any of the questions, but said that he had no other agenda other than ensuring those responsible for Lindsay's murder are imprisoned for this heinous act. Jeff also asserted that Capital Daily did not have permission to quote or publish the emails and that doing so would violate his privacy and rights. Anyone sharing this type of private info or using it publicly will be discussed publicly by name and address if applicable, he wrote. Emails sent from personal email accounts are often the basis of news stories, including in cases where the sender does not want the contents of those emails published or disclosed. In this case, the emails obtained by Capital Daily reveal the inner workings of LindsayBuziakMurder.com, contained a detailed record of correspondence between Jeff and others, and offer insight into some of the best-known true crime claims surrounding Lindsay's murder. In an email from 2013, Jeff seemed to acknowledge the letter he claimed Lindsay had left him was fake. Quote, "That faux letter is certainly bothering some, isn't it?" End quote. He wrote to one of his website admins. A public info officer with the SPD said police were not in a position to comment on Jeff Buziak or the investigation into Lindsay Buziak's murder in an email sent to Capital Daily January 18th, 2023. In Dateline's episode about Lindsay's murder, a panel of 3 law enforcement experts who were not involved in Lindsay's case speculated that Lindsay had been murdered by someone in the same type of business. Police previously said publicly they had found no evidence linking Lindsay's job as a real estate agent and the murder other than the apparent use of a commission as a lure. Because Shirley, Jason, and Ryan all worked as real estate agents at the time, the experts' theory eventually led some to conclude that the Zylos were involved in the murder. 2 days after Dateline's episode aired, the SPD held a press conference announcing that no member of the Zylo family is considered a person of interest or suspect in this investigation. And again, police sometimes say that intentionally falsely because they're watching those people and they want them to slip up. So that's a tried and true tactic that I guess coincidence theorists and bootlickers always forget about. Because, I mean, they have no obligation to tell the truth. When Capital Daily asked Dateline if it was aware of the police's announcement, among other questions, a spokesperson said only, "We stand by our story and our reporting process. We look forward to Lindsay's killers being brought to justice." Dateline's reporting has continued to resonate in other retellings of Lindsay's murder. The popular Australian true crime podcast Case File produced its own episode in 2016. The emails obtained by Capital Daily include correspondence between Jeff and Case File's anonymous writer and host, known at the time as Brad. Brad told Jeff he intended to produce an episode sourced from publicly available info and give Jeff editorial control. I have no problem with you proceeding as you describe as long as I maintain some kind of say or control over the final product, Jeff wrote back. Brad told Jeff he wanted people to connect the dots about who was responsible for Lindsay's murder without making consequential claims of his own. So here's the other thing. I mean, if he definitely knows what he knows, and he wants justice for his daughter, would that include making up the letter if he has information from other sources that he can't reveal or whatever? I don't know. That's kind of tough. Brad wrote a draft of the script which he shared with Jeff. After an apparent phone call between the two, another script was produced that included a sensationalized description of supposed mutilation of Lindsay's breasts and other details. Following his review of one of the drafts, Jeff asked Brad not to shy away from making bold claims. Each time you rewrite, I notice you soften on parts, Jeff wrote. Please don't go pussy on us. Case File also interviewed Saanich Police Staff Sergeant Chris Horsley, who later told Jeff that Case File had taken comments he made out of context. Initially, Case File ended the episode with Horsley's interview. When Jeff learned of that decision, he requested a change. You blew the whole thing by giving them the last word, he said in an email. You need to correct that. That's not fair reporting at all, my friend. If you want this minimalized show to be epic, people need to hear from me. Case File did as Jeff instructed and ended the episode with his interview. Shortly after the episode was released, Brad told Jeff it had been downloaded 187,000 times. Case File appeared to base the first 22 or so minutes of its episode on Dateline's reporting, which Case File lists as a resource on its website but doesn't directly attribute its own reporting to. According to transcripts for both Dateline and Case File, Jason was hunched over Lindsay covered in her blood. Both shows described Jason as being handcuffed, taken to the police station, and questioned for hours. In Dateline's episode, Josh Mankiewicz said Lindsay and Jason's relationship was in trouble. In the last months of her life, Lindsay was telling family and friends that she was thinking of breaking up with Jason as soon as several real estate deals closed. Case File repeated the sentence nearly verbatim. In other places within the same about 22-minute time frame, which Brad refers to as your typical rundown of the story of Lindsay Buziak, Case File appears to make other minor substitutions to a script that otherwise nearly echoed Dateline's reporting, such as changing housekeeper to nanny and upscale to upmarket. Capital Daily asked Case File about the similarities between its episode and Dateline's in an email. Case File producer Mike Migas strenuously denied any claims of plagiarism, describing them as false. Capital Daily explained to Migas that it had been unable to verify some of the claims made by Case File beyond the 22-minute mark, including that Shirley Zylo had purchased the Shawnigan Lake House for Lindsay and Jason. Migas provided few details, but said Case File had spoken with a number of people close to the case, including an authoritative source. Though Case File's episode, Case 28, was regarded as a success by Brad and Jeff, and remains a popular true crime account of Lindsay's murder, it led at least one person to point the finger directly at Shirley. The person, whose name Capital Daily is withholding for privacy reasons, contacted Shirley in 2018 as a prospective client. "I just found out who you are," they wrote in an email. "You belong in prison. Case file number 28. After police locked down the crime scene February 2nd, 2008, they brought in a canine unit which searched the exterior of 1702 DeSousa Place, but didn't find a scent. The side of the house facing the street wasn't searched because of contamination caused by first responders, according to court documents. Wait, but why would you still not search it, though? I mean, obviously you know about contamination, but you might still find something. A neighbor across the street told Capital Daily she saw police going door to door and searching people's yards with flashlights. Police have never said publicly whether a murder weapon was found, and no one has ever been charged with any offense relating to Lindsay's murder. Police interviewed Joe DeSousa, who was selling the home and whose family owned and was developing the DeSousa Place cul-de-sac. DeSousa told police he had been inside the house prior to the showing on February 2nd and checked the doors and windows and had even ventured into the primary bedroom and ensuite. He said he saw nothing out of place. DeSousa provided elimination fingerprints and footprints and gave police informed consent to enter the property, according to court docs. Police recovered little for, and again, to those that say that means he's innocent, if there was contact to hire this hit team or whatever, and then they brought in another B League where even if they found their info, they would never be able to reveal, like even if they revealed who the first layer hired them, they would never get to the upper layers if they made it impossible to do so. So I don't know if we can 100% definitively clear him just because he allowed the house to be searched. Police recovered little forensic evidence from the scene. A forensic pathologist told police only one weapon was responsible for Lindsay's injuries, according to court docs. It's unknown whether the suspects wore gloves when they shook hands with Lindsay. Well, that's interesting. In 2019, the Office of Investigative Standards and Practices recommended that police use new tech to retest evidence from the crime scene. The day after the murder, police obtained some initial data from Lindsay's BlackBerry, including the caller's 778 number. Using that number, they filed a court application for a production order asking the service provider, Virgin Mobile, to turn over subscriber information. In time, police learned the prepaid phone was purchased in late 2007 from a Vancouver convenience store and was activated online. The information provided by the person who activated the phone, including the name Paulo Rodriguez, was fictitious, according to court docs. Police went to the convenience store where the phone was purchased, but by then, the surveillance footage showing the sale of the phone was gone. As Staff Sergeant Horsley explained today. Okay, here's where I have to mention the NSA, the Echelon Spy satellite system, and all these things. Is anything ever really gone? Like, if they really wanted to get it, if military tech is around 50 years ahead of civilian tech, is anything ever really gone? And then, of course, I've mentioned the satellite surveillance. I mean, the Echelon Spy satellite system has been around for decades. I mean, obviously, once you're getting into the 2000s, every inch of metropolitan areas is surveilled 24/7. Just a quick aside, things that bug me, because if they really wanted this solved, they could solve it. Because the phone was used exclusively to contact Lindsay, police dubbed it the crime phone. Based on the purpose of the phone to lure the victim to her death, as police put it, police theorized that other phones would have been used just after or before each call with Lindsay to communicate with co-conspirators and avoid detection. Every time the crime phone was used to contact Lindsay, police obtained cell tower info relating to other cell phone users who accessed the same towers at the same times, giving them reams of info. What became of that info is unclear. Police have said the crime phone was deactivated sometime after the murder. Police gave Lindsay and Jason's Toshiba laptop to the RCMP's tech crime unit. The officer who studied the computer, Paul Brooks, found that the data related to internet chat communications had recently been deleted. Okay, what kind of amateurs are these? I mean, random goofs at Geek Squad can recover deleted info. I mean, what, again, I mean, it seems like all the pieces are there to solve this. The missing data came from the My Documents part of the hard drive where there was a folder called My Received Files. That folder, Brooks explained, was empty. Brooks also said that he had found a page file on the computer that contained past word processing activity, emails, and internet browsing activities. So here's the thing, I mean, supposedly you need to erase a hard drive at least 3 times before the data is really gone. So simply deleting something is not going to get rid of it. Not to a professional who can recover it. Though Brooks' account is still partially redacted, he concluded that there were chat messages at one time, but they have since been erased. Brooks was unable to determine when that erasure happened. Brooks declined to speak with Capital Daily, citing oaths he had sworn with the RCMP. A different officer who studied Lindsay's Facebook page noticed that none of Lindsay's 700 friends posted any messages on her wall between January 24th and February 3rd, 2008. The officer found this very odd and inconsistent with Lindsay's usual pattern of activity, according to her document. That is bizarre. Wow, we just went into the Twilight Zone. 700 friends, not a single one of them posted on her wall in the week leading up to her death? What? And even a full day after? What? That might be the biggest mind shock so far. On closer inspection, however, police appear to believe messages have been deleted. So they deleted her entire wall. That's crazy. In court documents filed by police March 25, 2008 to support their request for a court order requiring Facebook to provide certain records, police argued that obtaining deleted wall messages could yield important info. What Facebook provided back is unclear, but the notes made by a Saanich police officer after reading about Facebook, still a new social media platform, suggest Lindsay or someone with access to Lindsay's Facebook account may have deleted the messages. Wall messages may be deleted, the officer noted, but only the user may delete messages posted on their own wall through the use of their own account. Previously, Staff Sergeant Chris Horsley told the Times Colonist Police had investigated Lindsay's online social media chats, even those she deleted, and found nothing related to any crime or potential motive. Why would they be deleted then? When Capital Daily asked Lindsay's friend, why would there be a mass deletion? Okay, actually, if somebody wasn't sure if, like, they thought there were maybe 1 or 2 messages within that week that could be suspicious, so they just mass deleted the entire week just in case. Because actually that is kind of smart, because if they only deleted a couple of the messages that were suspect, those would be obvious. But if they just mass deleted everything from the previous week, how would they know what deleted was relevant? That's actually kind of smart. But the fact that anything was deleted at all makes it seem like there was something there. When Capital Daily asked Lindsay's friends and family about the messages, they had no explanation. Eventually, police came up with a theory that Lindsay had been falsely ID'd as a person who informed on a drug op. The theory was based on several events, including Lindsay's trip to see her father in Calgary December 2007. A few weeks after her visit, near the end of January 2008, Calgary police raided a house in the northwest part of the city, kicking off a year-long investigation dubbed Operation High Noon. That investigation led to the seizure of 80 kilograms of cocaine worth $8 million. according to news reports, and was described at the time as the largest ever cocaine bust in Alberta's history. Now, again, not to go on another aside, but isn't it curious how certain individuals, certain true crime cases, it appears there's this huge record drug bust before they go missing? Like in the Maura Murray case, like within the previous year, there was the biggest drug bust ever at UMass. Just things that stand out. Probably all coincidental. Everything must be coincidental, right? There is no evidence Lindsay was connected to the seizure. She was not a drug user, according to multiple sources, and was known to have an anti-drug stance. There is also no indication Lindsay informed police about it, and police have said there is no evidence Lindsay was involved in criminal activity. After returning home from her Calgary trip, Lindsay visited the Facebook page of a relative of someone involved in the drug op and tried to contact the person by phone, according to Crime Watch Daily. That almost sounds like a warning, like she found out something and she wanted to warn somebody, like possibly that they were in danger. Like, if, let's say she found out somebody else was a CI. Is that what this is? And she was calling to warn them that they were going to be found out or something like that. As Staff Sergeant Chris Horsley explained on the show, we don't know the nature of the call. We don't know why she called him. We don't know why she was on his Facebook site. Well, if you don't know why, how are they stating there's no connection? I mean, it's kind of weird, the level of gopher here by the police. If they don't know any of these things, how can they rule out that she's connected to some kind of drug activity? I mean, this is bonkers. The investigation into Lindsay's murder continued, slumping prior to Dateline filming its episode in 2010, but picking up at various times. The SPD have worked with FBI, RCMP, and other law enforcement agencies. They applied for and received more than 35 warrants and production orders for 10 companies, including Facebook, Bell Mobility, and BC Ferries. They also have conducted more than 400 interviews and have 2,000 entities, including people of interest and witnesses. So if they have the cell phone data that they can conclude the phone traveled on the ferry within the 24 hours before, that would mean they have those two persons' names, or at least one of them, or at least the phone, and possibly it was handed off to other people, maybe. But they have somebody's name. The best chances of solving the case appear to be advancements in science or someone making a deal with the Popo. In a televised address in 2021, Constable Marcus Anastasios of the SPD said it was not too late for people who had unknowingly been involved in Lindsay's murder to come forward. Unknowingly, in quotations. In 2022, Justice Robert Punnett ruled against Capital Daily's effort to lift further redactions from court documents filed by police in support of warrants and production orders, on the basis that, in some cases, doing so could compromise the safety of confidential informants or put the physical safety of third parties at risk. Punnett heard days of testimony by lead investigator Detective Sergeant Damian Kowalowicz in proceedings that were closed to the public and even Capital Data's legal team. Based on Kowalowicz's account, Punnett described the case as having extraordinary complexity and said the people allegedly involved were violent and had no regard for human life. This sounds like some kind of drug gang. I mean, yeah, this really does. Because if you have... So this detective is stating that the case is extraordinary complexity and the people are violent and no regard for human life. So this is... Wow. So this hit couple might have been involved in many other hits and drug gangs and many murders. Despite the years that have passed, he wrote, the investigation is very much active and ongoing. Okay, so then this goes on to the Shirley lawsuit with the website. Yeah, a lot of funny business going on with that. They also say that Jeff might have been involved in a false confession post. But apparently they never verified the IP for that. December 2018, a retired RCMP officer turned true crime blogger Gary Rogers became interested in Lindsay's murder. He said he sent Jeff an email introducing himself and expressing his willingness to help. According to Rogers, Jeff showed up at his door unannounced. After speaking with Jeff, Rogers said he began to feel like Jeff wasn't being truthful about aspects of his daughter's murder and told him so. Somebody has to call him out on this, and the way he's vilified the Zylo family and the Saanich police is just unacceptable, Rogers told Capital Daily in 2020. In interviews with the media, Jeff began referring to Rogers, who previously worked in drug and alcohol testing, as a pee collector. I don't feel privileged, Rogers said. I knew that was going to happen. Jeff's former website admin described their time volunteering with Jeff as the biggest mistake of their life. I saw a lot of red flags, they told Capital Daily. I did pull out a few times, but went back because I felt sorry for him. The former admin said it took them a long time to deprogram themselves. Once I did, I was able to permanently leave Jeff and never looked back. So apparently, yeah, unless there's some kind of campaign to discredit Jeff because he is on the right track, I mean, I don't know why that would be an issue. What does everybody think so far? I mean, there's a lot of layers here, no doubt. On Reddit, some people do defend Jeff and say even though these might have been unethical tactics, it's almost like he's trying to do something to flush out the real killers because the police aren't. So he may or may not know who they are, but he's just engaging in these tactics to flush them out. Interesting theory there as well. So let's go through a few other wrinkles in this case. Some people on Reddit true crime discussion are also talking about the thrill kill scenario. That a man and a woman set this up to kill her just as a thrill kill. But again, how would they have gotten her number? And let's not ignore statistics, most women are killed by people known to them. Denise says, it definitely sounds drug-related in some way. South to West says, to quote the inimitable Maxwell Powers, what were we talking about? Lord Zed says, I don't know anything about this case. Very astute. Very astute. Shifty Eye Shady, they found her body in the house and witnesses saw her shaking hands with people outside the house. So apparently she was not taken to a different location. Unless the witnesses are in on it, which... See, okay. Wow, we didn't go down this rabbit hole. So apparently there's more than one witness, but they're both in the immediate area. They're both in the area of this cul-de-sac, which is Zylo's mother's friend and business associate who owns the whole cul-de-sac and was there that day also. So if the witnesses said what they were told and there was no woman in a loud dress, then that might not be true. Because Jason, let's say Jason's not involved for the sake of argument, he only saw the man. He only saw one figure. Do we even know with 100% certainty, other than the two witnesses, if they were compromised by DeSouza? Do we really know there were two of them? I mean, I suppose that's the next rabbit hole we gotta go down, because if that's not true and that's all a diversion, what does that mean? Okay, so Doc Sundy posted this. I think one of the most prominent theories out there was a drug-related hit. Lindsay was traveling in Calgary, Alberta months earlier and visited a friend who was into drug-related activities, which I believe she disclosed to someone, either a friend or family member. There was a major drug bust of a large operation, over $8 million, involving the same circle Lindsay would have been in contact with shortly thereafter. The drugs were allegedly from a cartel in Mexico, which fits with a large-scale operation. What if the accent wasn't fake? Huh. Unless... Okay, I think I developed the McGuire theory here. If it's someone close to her, they want to make it look like it was a Mexican cartel hit for whatever reason, so they make the fake accent. Because they know that she was involved, she was in the same circle as this bust the week prior. I suppose that'll have to be the McGuire theory for now. Someone had to take the fall. A hit was arranged. Lindsay was the scapegoat, whether she actually snitched or not. In fact, Lindsay, at some point after the bust, the police know she had a phone call of unknown contents with someone involved in the said drug circle. Yeah, it's time to fire the Echelon spy satellite up and see what that phone call was. I mean, doesn't the NSA have all these I know this is in Canada, but that never stopped the US government before. She was also known to be friends with several people involved to varying degrees in the drug game. Did someone point the finger at her? And is that why she was so vocal about liking Jason, because he wasn't a druggie, just because she knows all these other people involved in drugs? Okay, so the burner phone was bought in Vancouver under a Spanish alias, suggesting the buyer was still likely Spanish. Although, again, if someone is trying to make this look like a Mexican cartel hit, they would obviously use that kind of name to point. Because if they really, I mean, I don't know, that's kind of tough. Because if the person is a Mexican cartel gang member and they're there, what are they going to use? An Anglo-Saxon name? I guess maybe they would make up some Mexican name that's a fake name, even if they are Mexican. So I guess that doesn't really tell us anything. So carefully only turned on to cold call and contact Lindsay, was not turned on any other time as to hide its users' movements. Lindsay said they had weird accents and labeled them as Mexicans, also potentially suggesting an out-of-country connection. The murder happened, the suspects vanished, presumably quickly leaving the country. Whether or not it was intentional, the dazzling dress the woman wore to distract others from paying attention to her face is potentially a clue as to how well thought out this job was. I think someone in the Mindshock chat also said that. And also, if someone had access to her Facebook, simply deleting just a whole week's worth of stuff so they can't pinpoint anything to anybody. This is completely unverifiable and hasn't appeared in any official report, but in the peak of things, a semi-reputable figure who had connections to law enforcement in Victoria area, I think a former police officer, had maintained a crime blog of sorts, claimed that of Lindsay's colleagues who worked at the realty company had known ties into a drug circle. Don't remember to what extent. Allegedly, She refused to give any statement or consent to any interview with police. Why not want to help solve the murder of your colleague? If true, was she perhaps the insider who knew Lindsay's listings and activities and helped arrange an ideal secluded house as a site for the murder? Reportedly, the murderers pretty much indirectly asked to be shown the house that she ended up being murdered in by having very specific asks. Well, or was this other colleague simply scared and threatened, so that's why she never came forward? Interestingly, the drugs in the bust are rumored to have potentially transited through Victoria, as the Victoria PD was involved in the initial bust, suggesting that they may have local contacts in the immediate area of the murder. Is this coworker one of them? Or are the Victoria PD corrupt? I will admit there are some fishy details with respect to the boyfriend. He has a perfect alibi for one. He was also noted to run directly to where Lindsay's body was upon gaining entry to the house. That said, this was all too well thought out in my opinion. I don't think the boyfriend would have been smart enough to arrange things to this degree, and it seems like overkill for a simple jealous boyfriend domestic incident. Little details like crashing of the suspects exiting through the front door is just a bit much to ignore. If you were behind things, why have another outsider, the friend, potentially becoming an eyewitness? That's just another loose end that leads back to you. Also, the fact that the two were murderers also suggests to me this is something much bigger than a low-key hired hit from a lay individual. I wonder what the couple's escape plan was by simply walking out the front door. Was there ever a vehicle found at the scene? I guess if they vanished, maybe there was a driver in a getaway car waiting and was able to meet them elsewhere after they had to change the escape plan. The police reportedly arrived quite quickly, so they wouldn't have had time to waste. Unfortunately, there probably weren't as many cameras around in '08 compared to today. I'm sure the police combed through any air cameras BC Ferries had. Wonder if they ever ID'd anyone or vehicles of interest. I'm not sure they combed through it, but there are further clues out there. They're unfortunately likely across international borders, and the police likely just cannot pursue things further than they already have. So a lot of people a lot of people are kind of speculating it's either this drug circle or the real estate circle. I'm not so sure. Let's not fall for that false dichotomy logical fallacy. If the Xylo and there's real estate corruption there, not just with the Xylo family, but the DeSalso, where this actually happened. I mean, if they're also involved in drugs and possibly police corruption, it might be a circle that involves all of them. I just think it's too coincidental, the drug busts and everything. It's just way too coincidental that she's part of this drug circle. Interesting Heart 900 posted this crazy theory. Jeff has connections to the killer. The prepaid cell phones used were purchased at a convenience store here in Vancouver that Jeff, I believe, either was the former property manager of the building at the time of the murder. I can't find out now who the property manager is. He is connected through business dealings with several people who were arrested in the Alberta cocaine bust. At the time was the largest drug bust in Alberta history. There was a good reason for her mom to divorce Jeff. This case will be solved and Jeff will be implicated in his involvement. Okay, as if this case didn't have further wrinkles. Now, I don't see any substantiation here that Jeff was the property manager. I mean, why would he have the phone bought there if he knew it could be traced there? Unless somebody was trying to implicate him. But it does, if he has connections to this circle as well, I mean, that'd be kind of crazy, but I don't know. Obviously, that would have to be substantiated. This is Mindshock. I do not claim anything is true or untrue. So, on Unresolved Mysteries, there are quite a few mind shocks here. I mean, the amount of coincidence here is just absolutely astonishing. So, let's go over this Calgary drug bust again. So, after returning home from Calgary, Lindsay attempted to contact a relative of someone involved in the Calgary drug bust, presumably Dil Alcazar. Police discovered that Lindsay visited this person's Facebook page and then tried contacting that person by phone. On February 1st, 2008, the day before Lindsay was murdered, Erickson Dil Alcazar was denied bail. So now we have another coincidence. The day before she's killed, this guy whose family member she's trying to contact is denied bail. This guy in the largest drug bust. Now, there's even more coincidence here. We're not even done here. I mean, this is just astonishing. So Replicant83 posted this. They posted that Lindsay was friends with one of the guys that beat up Rena Verk. Now, I've never heard of Rena Verk before, but wow. I mean, this is wow. So, Rena Verk was a 14-year-old Canadian girl who was beaten and killed by a group of teenagers in Saanich, British Columbia. Her status as a victim of bullying prior to her murder attracted substantial media scrutiny in Canada. 6 teenagers were tried and convicted for their participation in her death. So this was... There were 6 female perpetrators. And also Warren Glowatsky. He was convicted of Verk's murder and sentenced to life in prison. So this was covered in the book Under the Bridge. So apparently she was killed November 14th, 1997. Her body found November 22nd. Beaten and drowned. So how much of a coincidence? So Replicant 83 is stating that Lindsay Buziak was friends with one of the guys that beat up Rena Verk. So the only guy convicted was Warren Glowatsky. I mean, again, I don't know if any of this is related, but how many people... She seems to be friends with a lot of drug dealers. And also a murderer now? I don't know. That's their claim here, that Lindsay was friends with one of the guys. So there was more than one guy and then the girls? I don't know. Rena Verk. She was also friends with a guy who gang beat and paralyzed someone in Esquimalt. And she was friends with more than one big-time drug dealer. I'm not trying to imply anything, just that she was associated with a lot of shady people. Oh, almost forgot, the Xylos family is into tons of shady expletive, including drugs. Ownbeat 3666 says she was also friends with Greg Martell that operated a Ponzi bridge loan scam, then fled the country with $200 million of investors' money. Yeah, I don't know. This is kind of crazy to me. How is she friends with all of these different types of criminals? White collar, blue collar criminals. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, the amount of connections here. Another interesting discussion here is about spoofing cell phone numbers. Like, for example, if someone's trying to point the finger at the Xylos, they could have spoofed Jason Xylo's mother's number when they called Lindsay's friend to try to implicate her. That would be interesting. If, let's say, Lindsay pissed somebody off in this circle of drug friends, and they wanted to get back at her, so they fingered her for the reason the drug bust happened. They pointed the finger at her to take the fall, even though she wasn't involved, but she was clearly involved with the people that were involved in some capacity. Like, why is she friends with all these shady people? Also, another theory here is that Dilalcazar was in jail, denied bail. Could someone have been pissed at him and they killed his ex-girlfriend or his friend? They killed her as punishment for somebody else. So even if she was totally innocent, that's another theory there. Pumpkin Spice Expletive posted a very interesting comment recently on this unresolved mysteries subreddit. I'm gonna close this out with this comment because, I mean, this is just mind-shocking. I knew Lindsay growing up. There was something about her that made her seem so captivating. I still can't believe she was murdered in the way that she was and that it hasn't been solved. There was an article about this a year ago in the Capital Daily, and they used Freedom of Information requests to discover that the police know the identity of the person who purchased the 2 phones used to set up the hit. So it sounds like they do know who is responsible for this, but don't have enough evidence to bring about charges, which is also the rumor that has been floating around Victoria for years. I can say that Lindsay's sister follows Jason on Instagram, so I feel like that side of the family doesn't think the Zylos were responsible. Also, interesting fact, since Under the Bridge is news right now, which is based on the murder of Rena Verk, Lindsay and one of the girls who is a part of the first group of girls who beat up Rena that night, Nicole Patterson, were friends and attended elementary school together in grade 7. Another interesting fact, Nicole's brother was one of the 4 who went on to beat up and paralyze Nick Johnson in 2001 in Esquimalt, which was another case here that made headlines. All those people ran in the same circles or their paths crossed. Also, one thing I find interesting about this case is that the people who the killers claim recommended her to them, Lindsay called them and they were away on vacation, so they couldn't corroborate the story. Whoever did this must have known A, her former clients, and B, which ones would have been out of the country and unable to respond to her call. Yeah, that's a good point. Also, someone deleted a week and a half's worth of posts from her Facebook the day after she was murdered. Who had access to her Facebook? Jason on the laptop. Did she leave it open at work? Question mark. Well, if they're spoofing numbers, they might also have been able to hack her account. After Lindsay returned from Calgary, she visited the Facebook profile of a relative of someone involved in the drug bust and tried to call him. That makes me feel like her murder is connected to the drug bust somehow. So this is from a local who knew Lindsay, allegedly. Lot of information. The coincidence stack is a mile high. Actually, a follow-up post here by Midnight Rider says, I don't think we can say the phones were for sure purchased from the convenience store with the intent of murdering Lindsay. Burner phones are sometimes bought in bulk by criminals and then redistributed or resold on the black market. I wonder if whoever bought the phone from the store then passed it on to someone else who passed it on to someone else. Or maybe the person who bought the phone claimed they lost it. It's strange that no arrests were made. So yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. We don't know that. OK Box also posted this, which was curious. Zylo reminded... Wow, this is weird. So apparently, Shirley Zylo told Buziak that she had received a similar call from a woman about a month earlier, and that the client's $900,000 budget had been almost identical. But in that case, the mysterious call had ultimately yielded a sale. There's no indication that the 2 calls are connected. And Xylo appears to have brought it up only to reassure Buziak. Why would she do that, though? Because if she's involved and she can tell that Lindsay's not comfortable, would she make up a story that she also received a strange call from a mysterious woman and it yielded in a sale? Did anybody verify that a month earlier she sold a $900,000 house? I mean, man, this case is tough. This case is truly tough. I guess I kind of know why it was requested for Mindshock, because, I mean, there's so many angles here. So yeah, it seems like we don't have verification from Lindsay's friend getting this weird phone call from Shirley, and even if she did, if the number was spoofed, that might not prove anything. But why would they be calling Lindsay's friend the day after the murder anyway? Like, that's kind of weird, asking to see a house. This, like, are they planning to kill her right after killing Lindsay? I don't know, that doesn't make any sense. So, another theory from the former RCMP was that Lindsay was framed and made to look like the informant. According to him, the real informant double-crossed the Sinaloa cartel and wanted to put the blame on Lindsay. Now, Lindsay apparently runs in certain circles with certain friends. Maybe you shouldn't do that, because someone who knew who she was pointed the finger at her. I mean, I don't know. It seems plausible, doesn't it? It's just, I mean, would they really go that far out of the way to try to implicate the Xylos? I mean, that's what's tough there, too. But yeah, I mean, that's it for now. We kind of went over a lot in this case. It's definitely a tough case. If more information comes out, I'll obviously do a follow-up episode. But yeah, a lot of shadiness here. Very, very tragic. Hope everybody found another edition of the Mindshock podcast interesting and informative. If you want to help support the podcast, help keep up awareness in unsolved cases, cold cases, missing persons cases, wrongful convictions, and more, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You can also be a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.